Hey, travelers. Just stopping by to let you know that this episode that you are about to listen to is one of our older ones, and we were going through some growing pains at this time. But if you would like to start from where we consider our newest era of quality, I would go ahead and jump to episode 54, The American Bigfoot. Either way, enjoy, travelers. Welcome back to Infinite Rabbit Hole, everybody. Today I got Wes with me, who is officially a co-host on this podcast. Welcome, Wes.
Thank you very much. Glad to be a part full time now.
I'm excited to work with you, man.
Hell yes.
Yeah. Jake's going to sit out one more week. He should be back next week. We were supposed to be doing our fan appreciation episode this week, but unfortunately things came up. And, I really want Jake to be part of that episode because he is, a big part of why Infinite Rabbit Hole even exists. So we're going to hold off one more week on that one. If you're listening to this, unfortunately, we're recording it the same day that this one comes out, but I will post on the Facebook page at some point saying, hey, you guys got an extra week to get some of your questions and comments in so we can read them off on the show. Today, we're doing something a little different. Infinite Rabbit Hole, up until now, we've talked about some really far out stuff, some stuff that's not really backed by solid science. Today, we're talking about something that's going to make your head scratch, and we're really excited to talk about this, but it does have a lot of science behind it. We chose this topic because of its wow factor and this kind of feeling of urgency that you're going to get from it. And that is, at some point in our future, we're going to have to move to a different planet. Where are we going to go? Why are we going to have to leave? I'd also like to touch a little bit about how did we get here in the first place? If that's all right with you, Wes, because I did some research into that too.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Again, we're not scientists, but we do like to talk a lot about some cool stuff. I'd like to start it off today, Wes, if you're cool with that.
Go for it.
I'd like to start it off with a quote from one Stephen Hawking. Ooh, it's a long one. All right. So, quoted by Stephen Hawking. I believe that the long-term future of the human race must be in space. It will be difficult enough to avoid disaster on planet Earth in the next 100 years, let alone the next 1,000 or million. The human race shouldn't have all its eggs in one basket or on one planet. Let's hope we can avoid dropping the basket until we have spread the load. Well said.
Very well said.
All right. So with that, let's start from the very beginning. Okay.
All right.
I want to run a theory by you and get your opinions on it. I was thinking we can kind of run this in a timeline fashion. So we'll start off with how did life get here?
All right.
A little bit about why we would have to leave. And then let's start talking about the travel and destination.
Sounds good.
Cool. Have you ever heard of a term called transpermia?
Transpermia. It actually sounds familiar, but I can't, off the top of my head, think of what it is exactly. But I'm sure you got the answer in front of you.
I do. So transpermia is the explanation of how life could have gotten here from another planet.
Okay.
There's some pretty interesting stuff here. So the question is, did life start on another planet and then come here to Earth? And I want to talk about a particular planet in our solar system. So it's well believed that life on Earth began in the oceans, right?
Yep.
There's a problem with that. The RNA that we have in our bodies and in our cells and every genetic makeup that we have is soluble by water. It dissipates in water and it does not stick together very well. So in order for life to start, because RNA is the precursor to all life on Earth, it was there before even the most basic of cells. How could that have developed in water? There's a theory out there that life actually began on Mars. And then through the process of whether it be a meteor or an asteroid or some kind of other space body slamming into Mars and kicking over some Mars chunks, and one of those chunks lands in our ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the listener might be thinking, why Mars? Well, that's a good question. RNA, although it doesn't hold its form in water, does hold its form very well when boron is present. Now, when the Earth was very young, we didn't have a lot of boron, and geologists can tell you this.
Hmm.
But one planet that did, and one of our closest neighbors, not our closest, but one of our closest, is Mars, right?
Okay.
Has plenty of boron.
Hmm.
Another problem with building RNA and DNA here on Earth is that we have unsoluble phosphates here. Basically, what phosphorus compounds are the things that hold together proteins, and they help form RNA and DNA.
Hmm.
A lot of our phosphates are solid and they're not water soluble. Now, Mars is literally chock full of phosphates that are more water soluble, not fully water soluble, but they are soluble in water.
Hmm.
So now you have two things: you have boron and you have phosphates that are soluble in water. Let's say a chunk of of uh, of rock from Mars holding something that was incubated and created on Mars through the boron and the phosphates
Hmm.
traveled over, and they came over to Earth where they were able to incubate and grow at an expanded rate through all of the stuff that Earth can provide:
Hmm.
sunlight, oxygen, nitrogen based atmosphere, and an atmosphere, not a gravity that's not so harsh or not so weak. I don't know if
Hmm.
you know that, but Mars actually has an issue where the gravity is so low. It's actually, the planet is half the size of Earth, roughly half the size of Earth, and me at 200 pounds, right? I would only weigh 75 pounds on Mars.
Okay.
And there's a lot of problems with that, right? Connective tissue in your body can't necessarily grow and connect as well as it could with the gravity that we have here on Earth. Um, you have problems with um, bodily systems not being able to develop correctly. Now, I'm not saying that it couldn't develop in a certain way on a planet that has less gravity, but from what we know, Earth's gravity works really good with this stuff. um, One of the big issues with traveling into space later on in the future is having to find a planetary body that has the proper amount of gravity so that our hearts can still beat, so that our bones still work properly, our muscles develop properly, and
Hmm.
that our spinal cords don't expand or compress. That is a very important thing. Now, does that come into play when you're talking about single cell organisms? I don't know. That's a big question. But is it outside the realm of possibility that life could have started on Mars, where they have everything you need to at least start life and build RNA and build DNA and build proteins to build single cell organisms, or simple organisms, not multi, not these big conglomerate celled systems like a human being, but something small like a bacteria. And
Hmm.
then something slams into Mars, and that rock with all those hitchhiking bacteria or single cell organisms hitches a ride over to the Earth, lands in the water, and now you have everything else you need to just excel growth and
Hmm.
propel changes into these single cells to create these multi-cell organisms.
Okay.
So what do you think?
That somehow, while we were in the early stages of life, we were on Mars and then somehow got carried over to Earth.
Yeah.
Basically, what you're saying.
Yeah, but I mean,
Um,
nowhere near the form that we are in today. And
yeah, yeah,
this.
yeah. Well, I mean, like just like the beginning stages,
Mhm.
maybe even single cell organisms, or maybe just past that. I don't know if we were any further past that, if we would have survived such a journey. Um, I don't know. I've never really thought about that, or the idea that possibly we're not originally from Earth. We share a lot of similarities between a lot of the animals and other, forms of life on the planet.
So what if I were to say that all life, not necessarily just human life, but all life on Earth started in Mars?
I mean, that would explain why we're so closely related to everything else, you know. But Earth is like in the perfect spot for life to have formed. We're in the Goldilocks zone, right? We're right in the area where liquid water can exist. Any closer to the sun, it would just boil or evaporate and be gone. Any further away, and it would just freeze, right?
Hmm.
And that's part of what allowed us to flourish, life on Earth. If life was able to start in some way, shape, or form on Mars, I feel like, Mars right now is a much harsher environment than Earth, obviously, but I imagine that there would have been more than what we've found so far. Because didn't they find like bacteria or something like that on Mars a while back?
Well, I don't know if they did or not, but I know that the polar ice caps on Mars, they're claiming that there could be potentially some frozen bacteria up there and at the bottom. I don't know if they necessarily found anything yet. I kind of not up on my Mars news right now, but um, I wouldn't put it
Oh,
past them. But I'm pretty sure that if they had found bacteria, that would have been giant news. That should have been everywhere because technically that's life off of this planet.
so I guess just a quick Google search. Uh, it looks like, to date, no proof has been found of past or present life on Mars. Cumulative evidence shows that during the ancient uh, Noachian time period, I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, the surface environment of Mars had liquid water and may have been habitable for microorganisms. So I do remember reading about that in the past, that there was evidence that there may have been flowing rivers and whatnot on Mars. And if there's flowing water, then there's a, a huge chance that there was life of some sort on there, right?
Hmm.
Even if it was at the most basic, level of single cell organisms and whatnot. But it also barely has an atmosphere. So because, like you said, it's smaller than Earth, and part of what allows Earth to have, the atmosphere it does is that it's big enough to have a certain level of gravity, right? So, and that's what's holding the atmosphere to the planet. Uh, and Yeah. So mm, I don't know. I feel like if I mean, I'm not sure how long they think that, life as we know it has been on the planet. I know that they've said that we've gone through multiple extinction events, right? So like,
Hmm.
but everyone knows about the dinosaurs, and that the most plausible theory for their extinction was a asteroid came down and basically put the planet into a um, I don't know, however many years long winter, so they ended up dying out. But obviously, something survived, or it just somehow through the miracle of life, uh, started from scratch again, and now here we are. You know, Completely different world than the little we do know of prehistoric time and whatnot. But I feel like we would have found something on Mars by now, like definite proof,
Hmm.
But that one I don't know. We'll have to come back to, I think.
Now, I wonder, I know they sent a lot of rovers out there, and I know they've been able
Hmm.
to gather soil samples and other kind of samples, right? But have they
Hmm.
been able to get those samples back to Earth to be tested? I know they that those rovers have testing available capabilities,
Hmm.
but how well are they actually able to test that kind of stuff without actually having somebody there or having all the equipment that they could possibly need?
Well, I don't think it would be too hard for them to test it the same way they do tests here on Earth, right? Because basically here on Earth, anytime we're testing anything, it's a machine or some type of equipment doing it, right? And then we're just reading the results and interpreting the results for ourselves, right?
Hmm.
So essentially, the rovers and stuff that we've sent to Mars is basically doing the same exact thing, except it's sending the data from its results from Mars back to Earth, and then our scientists here are analyzing that information to come up with you know interpret the results for themselves, right?
Hmm.
um I think they're just as capable of doing it there the way we've been doing it. um I'm sure they gotten a lot of good information back from the rovers and whatnot.
Oh,
The pictures are
absolutely.
pretty awesome.
So one of the questions that came up in my own mind when I was thinking of panspermia and whether or not this could be an actual thing that had happened is, can single cell organisms or simple organisms live in the vacuum of space? And I came across this really cool study that was done on the International Space Station where they
Hmm.
took various types of organisms from single cell to, simple multi-cell organisms, and they actually let them grow on a piece of sheet metal basically and left them out into the vacuum of space for let's see, they left them in the vacuum of space for 552 days.
Hmm.
And not only did they stay alive, but they grew and they multiplied.
Hmm.
So it
Was it
is,
the sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off,
you're
but was
fine.
it the tardigrades?
I don't know. Very good possibility, but the simple fact is that yes, if something were to hitchhike on a rock through space, at
Hmm.
least in our solar system, I know it gets much colder whenever you get outside of the solar system and you don't have any of the sun's light to rely on and all that vast empty space. But seeing something hitch a ride from Mars to Earth,
Hmm.
yes, it can be done, depending on what organisms were attached to that rock. Yes, it can happen. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that is really cool. Because I heard about the same thing, but it was what they call tardigrades. They look like little worms with legs and like a uh, suction cup like mouth
Yeah,
on the
the,
face.
yeah, they look like razor
Um,
teeth.
yeah.
Yeah.
But apparently there was an Israeli spacecraft that crashed on the moon that was carrying thousands of them, and it crashed on the moon. So now people are like, well, we know that they can survive in space, in the vacuum of space. Uh, there, who knows what's going to happen to the ones that crashed on the moon?
Mm.
There's definitely going to be ones that have survived. So yeah, so I guess they're the only animal. I guess they are considered animals, near microscopic animals, but they're able to survive in the vacuum of space.
Yeah, I heard those things were able to withstand nuclear explosions and everything too.
Yeah, they're pretty fascinating. But I mean, if those are able to withstand those types of conditions, I can't imagine that there isn't anything else out there that can withstand it. So there has to be other life out there, right?
Yeah.
Who knows? I think it was one of the moons of Jupiter, or I forget, but we know that it has like a frozen like outer layer, right? But underneath that is like a ocean that they expect to be like somewhat warm from the planet's core, the activity in the core or whatever. So they think that might be one of the best places to find life
I
within our
think
own solar system.
I think you're thinking of Europa.
That might be it.
You said Jupiter, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Europa is on Jupiter.
Let's see. Yep. Europa, or Jupiter 2, is the smallest of the four uh, Galilean moons orbiting Jupiter. Let's see. Slightly smaller than the Earth's moon, Europa is primarily made of silicate rock and has a water ice crust and probably an iron nickel core. Has a very thin atmosphere composed primarily of oxygen. Its surface is striated by cracks and streaks, but craters are relatively few. This is just things that we've been able to see uh, from Earthbound telescope
Hmm.
observations. Um, yeah. Um, so there's a hypothesis that water ocean exists beneath the surface, which could conceivably harbor extraterrestrial life. And extraterrestrial, as in possibly single cell organisms, or maybe even slightly more advanced than that, but not like little green men. You know.
Yeah.
um, just extraterrestrial, as in not from Earth.
Yeah.
But
Supposedly there's a couple of them out there that could
mhm,
potentially.
Hmm.
harvest some sort of life, even if it's a carbon-based life form.
I mean, but for all we know, there is life forms out there that are based in some other element, right? We
Yeah,
have no idea.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, the only thing that carbon has going for it is that it's so friendly when it comes to other elements. I mean, when
Hmm.
did you ever take organic chemistry?
I don't think so.
Man, I remember taking one organic chemistry class in college, and everything was carbon. Just everything. Everything connects to carbon. Everything, carbon
Everything is
just,
based.
I mean, not that it couldn't, like other elements could play friendlier in different situations out in the vastness of space on other planetary bodies.
Hmm.
Um, but at least here, carbon is, I mean, it's the building block of life.
Yep. Well,
So,
yeah. But w- we know we like carbon is part of the periodic table, right? A
yep.
periodic table of elements, but that table is only made up of the elements that we have discovered, right? And we're pretty sure that there's a way more out there we just haven't seen because I mean, um, you look at like just the solar system. Um, I mean, it seems like we have a pretty good understanding of it to a degree, right? It's all made up of stuff that we know about. But, for all we know, out somewhere out there in the vastness of space and the universe, there could be many other elements that we have no idea about and which could bring along, different forms of life that are based in some other element, you know. So like scientists are like pretty sure that there's more out there, right? But what if there's another star system out there with planets, and there's planets in the Goldilocks zone around the star that they're orbiting? And what if none of the elements that we know about here on Earth are present in that solar system,
Hmm.
right? Uh, maybe the most common element there is something else that we have no idea about, and that's what the life forms there are based in. Like just like thinking about stuff like that, just kind of like it's crazy,
I think if you see a life form that is based off a different element as its primary building block, you're going
Mhm.
to see something drastically different.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And who knows, maybe that life form is able to withstand much harsher environments than us.
Hmm.
It's just it's a lot of fun to think about that type
It
of
is.
stuff. You know.
Carbon, like you had alluded to a little earlier when you were talking about the Goldilocks zone.
Hmm.
Carbon is, one of the main reasons why most of our body is water, and how not only do we need to be in the Goldilocks zone because of the water that's outside of our body, but we also need to be in the Goldilocks zone because of the water that's inside of our body too.
Hmm.
And without us being a carbon-based organism, uh, living outside the Goldilocks zone is just not going to happen.
Hmm. There's millions of reasons why we're able to survive here and nowhere else. So um, it's a lot to try to wrap your mind around thinking about, especially when it comes to thinking about the possibility of other life out there in the universe.
Absolutely, man. All right, so you ready to start talking about what's wrong with the planet and why we would have to get off of this?
uh, what's wrong with the planet is mostly us, but uh, you
You ain't
know,
wrong.
uh, we tend to fight over the dumbest stuff, right? And but when you start thinking about the vastness of the universe and how infinitely large it is, all this stuff back here on our own little rock uh, seems like insignificant, right?
Hmm.
Like we're such a small part of a much bigger universe, and all this conflict and fighting amongst ourselves is what's the point? It's just like I don't know. Might as well be like ants fighting each other, you know.
Yeah.
But when in reality, we scientists know that at some point we're going to have to leave Earth, because the sun, right now it's a yellow dwarf, but eventually it's going to run out. It's going to run out of hydrogen, because that's what it's currently burning right now in nuclear fusion.
Hmm.
Um, and eventually, when it runs out of hydrogen, it's going to start burning helium,
Which is going to
and
cause it to rapidly expand.
yes, into a red giant. Eventually, it's going to consume Mercury and Venus, right? And
Hmm.
with a good possibility of it also consuming Earth when it expands. But even if it doesn't consume Earth, it's still going to be bad news for Earth, because basically it's going to boil our oceans. It's going to burn everything. The atmosphere is going to be gone. There's going to be no way Earth will be able to uh, support life on it after this process of going from a yellow dwarf to a red giant. And it's like scary to think about, but I mean, good thing about it is that it's billions of years away, right? I mean, there's many different numbers out there that I've seen of when this could possibly happen. Um, we have a pretty good idea of when it'll happen, give or take a couple billion years, right? But it was something I was talking to my wife about the other day, and she was just like, "What? The Earth's going to die?" And I was just like, "Yeah, eventually." Because I think how we got onto the topic was, she's like, "I don't know why we're spending so much money to, explore space and stuff like that." And I told her, I was like, "Well, we got to start now, because eventually we're going to have to leave Earth." And she's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Well, the sun is going to turn into a red giant, and like we're not going to be able to stay here on Earth one way or another." And she was just like, "What?" And then I started telling her about it, and then she was just like, her mind was blown. She was just like telling her brother and some of our friends about it. She's like, "Yeah, he's telling me this mind blown stuff. Like, I can't believe it." And I was just like, "Yeah." So essentially, we need to start like trying to learn more about our own solar system, and the other star systems around us and whatnot, because eventually we got to go somewhere else. um, whether that it's another planet in our own solar system, or to another star system that potentially has a planet that can support life, that's in its own Goldilocks zone. So right now there's like two options, and only one of them is somewhat realistic, right? So one option is we leave Earth, right? Um, and then we go to another planet within our own solar system, because once the sun goes from a yellow dwarf to a red giant, that habitable zone, the Goldilocks zone, is going to change, right? It's going to expand out, because the sun is going to be much larger. It's going to give off a lot more light. And so Mars, or maybe even one of the moons, uh, one of the other planets, will be in that habitable zone, you know, and will be warmed up, and maybe there's a chance that life can survive on it, that it can be habitable. But if we do that, we know that also, once the Earth becomes a red giant, that isn't going to last forever either. Eventually, once it gets to the phase of red giant, it'll be a red giant for roughly a billion years, give or take, and then after that, it'll become a white dwarf, where it'll shrink to even smaller than the size of the sun currently. And then once that happens, the other planets in our solar system will become ice covered rocks again, basically. Uh,
Completely useless.
Yes. So the other option, besides going to another planet on our or moon in our solar system, is to travel from our solar system to another star system, to another planet that has life on it, or could support life on it, I should say, right? That's in a Goldilocks zone of its own star, around its own star. And but the problem with that is, the closest star system with a potential planet within that Goldilocks zone is what, like 14 light years away. So if we were able to travel at the speed of light, it will still take 14 years at the speed of light to reach that star system, which at this point is not possible, because we aren't even close to reaching those speeds. So that's like one of the things I was explaining to my wife was we got to start now with trying to, you know, get to that point because we can't wait till we're like 10 years out from the sun becoming a red giant and then start working towards it then, right? There's no way we'd be able to come up with the technology that would be needed to travel those kinds of distances in a realistic sense, you know. And if we're not able to do that, then the only other thing I can think of is that we have like a space station, like the International Space Station, but it's just traveling through the cosmos, you know, and we're just living on that. But I mean, for a station to have enough room to hold all of us, it would have to be pretty damn big, you know. If we were to do something like that, like a space station that just holds all life, it'd be it might be kind of like that movie Valerian. I don't know if you ever saw that,
Nope.
but the whole premise of the movie, the beginning is, you know, the nations of Earth create, you know, the International Space Station, right? And then more and more nations, as they gain the ability to launch rockets and get to space, they like connect themselves to this station, and then eventually the station gets so big that it has to leave Earth's orbit or risk, Earth's gravity causing it to crash into the Earth. So they leave Earth's orbit to go on off on their own. They end up finding other alien life, intelligent life that becomes part of the station, and it's like a I don't know. Uh, everyone gets along for the purposes of helping each other survive. And there's a whole, obviously a whole plot beyond that, but that's kind of like the basic concept of the very beginning of the movie.
Mhm.
Uh, and it's kind of cool. That'd be awesome to see something like that. But I mean, obviously, this is all well past our time, our children's time, our grandchildren's time, the children of our grandchildren's time.
See,
Billions of years away.
I I feel where your wife is coming from. I really do.
Hmm.
And I know where you're coming from too. I can see both sides of the argument.
Hmm.
The problem with me here, and I'm just gonna, I had plans to get this little bit of information out, so I'm just gonna spit it out there real quick,
Hmm.
and then I'll bounce back to what kind of why I'm siding with your wife and why I'm siding with you, right?
Okay.
Scientists in 2012 came out with a statement saying that they believe that the Earth's maximum capacity for human beings is between 9 and 10 billion people.
Hmm.
Now, fun fact, right? 1970, the population for the human race was 3.7 billion, roughly a third of what scientists in 2012 believed was our
Hmm.
max. Do you know what it is today?
Isn't it something like 7 or 8 billion?
7.8 billion. So, in the span of 50 years, our population more than doubled.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
So we're obviously going to run out of a lot of things, right? I mean, one
Yeah.
one of the thing is, everyone's probably thinking about this. Or like, what are you talking about? There's so much room. Look at all the room in the Rockies. Look at all the room in Canada. Look at all the rooms in Siberia. You're like, there's a lot of room left, right? But
There's a lot of room, but
the
food,
problem, the problem,
resources.
the problem is who's going to make all the food?
Yep.
Where are these croplands going to come from? Who's going to go out there and do it? With
Yeah.
society today increasingly relying on phones and video games and how important it is to get a like on Instagram. Speaking of, we got our new Instagram up. Go and check that out. And we really like likes. um
Nothing but shameless promotion here. Don't.
completely shameless, just the way we like. But you know, we're running into an era now where we're not going to have that. And
Yeah.
well
And
well within our lifetime, this will
yeah,
be.
that's in the very near future.
And with all the mighty dollar holding more meaning than the future of our children, the problem will not fix itself, nor is it even possible that humankind will put greed aside. And
Yeah.
I just don't see us coming together even in the future. I mean, something drastically is going to need to happen
Yep.
in order for us to even get to the point to where we're going to even have the opportunity to get off this planet. And I just don't see it ever becoming a thing. And my own personal belief is that we just got to make the best out of what we have right now because we're not meant for the stars. And
I I have a very similar opinion as you, but my belief is not all of us are meant for this for a life amongst the stars.
now that could be
Uh,
true, but when you and I'm sorry I kind of cut you off before your argument there. But yeah, I believe that there are a lot of people, excuse my grammar because I can't speak today.
you and
I
me both.
believe I believe that there are a lot of people that are meant for the stars. There are some people out there that are really going to do the human race good and be able to push forward into space, the final frontier, and find a new place for us to be
Hmm.
through science and exploration and a hell of a lot of resources and a hell of a lot of time. You're talking
Hmm.
generations of people before we actually finally get somewhere that we can populate. But the thing is that even those people that are meant to go, I don't think are ever going to get the chance to go because a dollar is worth so much to so many people. And I just
Well,
don't see it happening. I just don't see it.
I mean, I do see it. So my opinion is that I believe that when it comes to down to it, once we hit that threshold where there's not enough resources to support the amount of life that's on Earth, right? Um, we're going to like as a race, or like at least a small portion of us is going to have to make a choice to leave Earth, right? Leave Earth for
Hmm.
good. Like Elon Musk, I feel like is already like moving that direction, right? Because he wants to send people to Mars by what 2022, I
Yeah.
think is the latest. He's pushing for that so hard, and I can understand why. Like he's made some very significant advances in technology, and in the process has lowered the cost of space travel for anyone in like for our nation and for other nations, right? By having the reusable rockets, which, a little side note, man, when I first saw that stuff going on, and then seeing they had their launch from Kennedy Space Center in Florida, and then you see the rockets come down and land themselves like perfectly in sync. I was like,
On that barge.
not on the barge, like at Kennedy Space Center, like came back down and land. They had like two separate landing pads, like right next to each other,
I saw the
and
one where they landed it on the barge and I was blown away by that.
I think it was the first mission where it actually took up a payload, like
Yeah.
like to the either to the International Space Station, or it was launching a satellite or something like that. But it was like once they were past a testing phase, they're like, all right, we feel confident enough to launch someone's stuff without blowing it up, right? And we feel like the rockets can come down and land on their own, right? And like watching the videos, like I grew up in Florida, Daytona Beach, and seeing space shuttle launches and whatnot as a kid was just like that was like everyday life in Florida. Seeing the launches, being like, ooh, like, oh, it's
Hmm.
so awesome. And then the shuttle comes back. If it lands in Florida, you hear the two sonic booms, boom, boom, it shakes your whole house, and you're just like, holy crap, what the hell was that? You know, it was like that was super exciting. And then, as a kid, you envisioned the future having flying cars and all this other crap, right? That you see in movies and whatnot. But these rockets that he made, SpaceX, seeing them come down and land themselves perfectly in sync with each other, like touching down like within a second of each other, I was like, man, this is like first time I've seen something that I envisioned as a kid what the future would be like, and this is it. Like it's real, it's happening. It's awesome, man. That stuff blows my mind still. It's
Well,
it's it's incredibly impressive.
I agree, and I'm glad that you brought up Elon Musk because I had no plans of doing it, but damn well deserves to be mentioned because
Oh, hell yeah.
some of the stuff this man is doing. I mean, if the future of the human race is a bunch of Elon Musk, we're fine.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, we're gonna do just fine.
I think
Uh,
he's opening up a lot of minds. A lot of people like kind of like being more aware of how fragile the earth is. It's not something we can just take and not
mhm.
expect any type of repercussions. Um, and I think he's opened up a lot of people's eyes to that. Because there's a lot of people who are just like, why the hell we sending people to Mars or whatever? They don't know anything about this stuff. Like, uh, this is just from my personal experience. People I talk to about it, and they're just like, I don't understand. They should be spending that money on this or that, And I'm like, I mean, our country's government is already wasting a ton of money on a bunch of stupid stuff. But here's this guy with his own private company. He's dumping his own money into this with the future premise of humans leaving Earth and going to Mars.
All right, so it 2 billion years from an article I read this morning. It says that in 2 billion years, the sun will be so hot and large
Mm-hmm.
that it will begin to boil our oceans away. So we don't even have to wait until this thing becomes a full red giant for us to really start feeling the effects. Now you got to
Mm-hmm.
remember, the larger that the sun grows, the closer that we get to the sun, and that Goldilocks zone gets pushed farther away. There's going to be a lot of different issues way
Oh yeah.
before we even get that front row seat to the sun. So even though we're still from the article that I read, we're still 7.6 billion years away from this planet being possibly engulfed by our sun.
Mm-hmm.
We're only about 2 billion years away before our oceans start to boil away.
Yep.
Now, I know 2 billion doesn't like we're sitting here thinking, wow, our lifespan is what, maybe 80 years? That's nothing I need to worry about. But the
Yeah.
problem is if we don't start worrying about it now, the next generation is going to feel the same way, and everyone's going to start feeling the same way.
Yep.
We
And
need
it'll
to
be too late by then.
we, we need to start focusing on this stuff if we're going to move forward into um, leaving this planet. Because again, man, I honestly, full-heartedly believe that in some point we're just going to get too far away from being able to actually do this. And
Yeah.
you know,
And we're saying this as in humans are going to survive to that point where the sun becoming a red giant is a real problem for us. But we're all, like you said, we've already doubled our population on the earth since the 70s, right?
mhm.
Um, it's
And all
man.
those 30 something year olds, like I am,
Hmm.
in 50 years, planetary population doubled. What's it going to be like when we're 80? I mean, are we going to be this, like, we're going to have another doubling of the population?
Screwing ourselves over on multiple fronts there.
Right. I
you
heard
know,
a fun fact, or I read a fun fact today that says that we know more about the surface of the moon and Mars than we do about our own ocean.
I believe it. We've only explored a fraction of it. It's a
Yeah.
very small percentage of it. There's still a lot that we don't know. I mean,
Could you
there's
imagine? Could you imagine if there's a resource down there that would just fix energy issues and all kinds of stuff for us?
I mean, we have the potential to fix like renewable energy sources, solar power, wind power. They have basically like wind turbines, but it's for the ocean where the ocean's currents produce power, you know. But the problem with that is that these corporations and stuff that run the world are incredibly greedy. And so like I know
And the argument comes full circle.
yeah. So like I think it was when I was in Oklahoma, you could choose where your energy, like your electricity came from. If it came from uh wind farms, because there's a ton of them out there, or it come from the conventional where it's using fossil fuels or whatever to produce electricity. And it was more expensive for you to use the renewable energy source, which is like crazy. Like, what? How does that make any sense?
I mean, it's just like those salads. You want to go and buy a salad and it's $5, but you can go get a McDouble from McDonald's for $1.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
that's the world we live in. They want
It's
to force,
sad, man.
that's a whole nother topic.
Oh yeah,
We're not getting into that.
but we're just barely scraping the surface with that. But that's just one of the many issues that we have to find a way around for our race, the human race, to survive. You
Hmm.
know, if we want any chance of you know surviving another 100 years or so, literally, if we want to survive the next 100 years, we got to come together and figure out something, and then come together and pull our resources to try to you know, reach the stars.
Yeah.
Because that's where our ultimate survival lays, is we have to leave Earth one way or another. There's no getting around it. We know it's going to happen, and people can argue about it all they want, but it's happening whether we like it or not, whether you believe it or not.
And I think that's what makes this such a good topic for Infinite Rabbit Hole, is that I don't think a lot of people quite understand that if the human race is going to continue, the only choice is to leave the planet. And it's not something we have to do right now, but it's something we have to start working towards right now.
Absolutely. And it's it's perfect. Like, you almost phrased it perfectly. The earth, like the human race, has to go down the infinite rabbit hole, essentially, to figure out how to survive, how to get past our own greed and human nature. We have to jump down out into the unknown. you know who knows what else is out there. you know it's it's crazy, but I hope that we can do it.
Yep.
I really do.
I hope so, but I'm optimistic. We'll go with that.
Yeah.
I think I hate to be the guy that just sat here and said that we have to get our shit together.
Hmm.
Um, I'm more interested in if Bigfoot exists, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we want to save Bigfoot, we gotta start, handling our shit. We're destroying the environment at a, you know, exponential rate. Uh, you know,
It's
it,
quite alarming.
yeah.
All right, so let's get off the planet. Let's get off the
Yeah.
planet, right? Let's go for a ride now. We're going into the final frontier. We're going into space. Before we do that, I just want everyone to kind of get a base knowledge of one particular piece of vocabulary, and that's a light year. So for those that don't know exactly what a light year is, it is a unit of measurement that measures the distance that light can move or light can travel in an entire year's time. And that comes out to just shy of 6 trillion miles at the speed of light.
6 million,
6
six
trillion.
trillion. So,
It's actually 5.9 trillion, but in or so the distance that light can travel at the speed of light in a year is just shy of 6 trillion miles. Okay,
mhm.
now before I go any further, I just want to step back because I do want to fix an earlier screw ups from the last episode. I said that the closest planetary system to ours is roughly 14 light years away. I was wrong. I was wrong. It's actually 4.5 light years away, and it's the Alpha Centauri solar
Okay.
system.
Well then,
So I was wrong. Okay, I'm happy I fixed that for everybody. But still, at 4.5 light years away, it takes the speed that light can travel. So if I shine a flashlight and you're way down on the other end of the street and you see that flash of light, I mean, it's instantaneous. It takes light 4.37 years to get to Alpha Centauri, and that's our closest neighbor. Now, is there any habitable planets in Alpha Centauri? No, not as far as we can tell right now with the technology that we have. No. So we have to go farther than that. Okay. And just remember, it's not going to take us 4.5 light years or 4.5 years to get to Alpha Centauri because we're not going to be traveling at light speed.
At
Okay.
least with our current technology.
We're not going to. Okay. Well, I don't think we're going to be traveling light speed. I think your body's going to disintegrate. And I personally don't think that anything that we can make can travel that fast. Now, if you listen to our previous episode with Mr. Mike from the Hush Hush Society, I just want to tag them real quick. That Mike was a great guy to have on. I really appreciated him. Go listen to his stuff. It's awesome stuff. And he's a super smart dude. He says that if somehow, aliens can create wormholes, that's our only chance of really making that kind of travel. Let's be honest, man.
Well, that's what I was going to say is there's more than one way to travel the speed of light. Well, right now both those ways are impossible for us, right? There's the one way which would be brute force speeding our bodies up to the speed of light, right? And traveling that distance that way. And then there's the second, which, you know, also might as well be fiction right now, but we believe that it's possible to create a wormhole where, um, we fold the fabric of space time and are able to travel from one point to another that is many millions of light years away, or could only be 4 light years away, but travel that distance in a very short amount of time, which would be equivalent to traveling at the speed of light, if or maybe even faster. um, you know but to give some perspective to like, I guess, in relative figures that most people would understand the speed of light. So the distance between Earth and the sun, right, is considered one astronomical unit. That's like just something we made up this unit of measurement because that's how far Earth is from the sun. So it takes light 8.3 minutes to travel from the sun to Earth, right? And at that speed, it's traveling 186,000 miles per hour per second. Miles per hour, 671 million miles per hour.
Mm-hmm.
That's how, that's insane, right? But currently, there's no way that we can ever hope to uh, go that fast, right?
Yeah.
But maybe one at some point in our future, we will figure it out and we can do it. But I don't even know what the closest we've gotten to it. What's the fastest
Well,
made object?
while you're
Uh,
looking that up, I just want to put out some cool facts out there.
mm,
Before I joined the Navy, I was living in St. Petersburg, Florida, and I was going to St. Petersburg College for astronomy. I actually wanted to be an astronomy major.
mm,
So when you said you wanted to talk about this, I was like, okay, let me crank out some of these old textbooks. And then I'm looking at some of this stuff. I'm like, okay, none of this is fact anymore. But
mm.
fun fact for any of those that are listening that don't necessarily know how light technically or light speed works, when the sun comes up and you're looking at it, like Wes was saying, the light from the sun takes 8 minutes to get to your eyes. You're actually looking at the sun as it was 8 minutes ago.
Hmm.
And let's say if you were to look at the star in the center of Alpha Centauri, right, which is our closest neighbor, and that is 4.5 light years away from us. If you're looking at that star, you're actually looking at that star as it was 4.5 years ago. There's
Yep.
a lot of stars out in our sky right now that could no longer exist. I believe it's Betelgeuse is a star that's out there that they believe could have already went supernova. And what
Possibly.
supernova is when you have a much more denser star than our sun is. Instead of doing the whole red giant phase, it simply explodes.
Mm-hmm.
And it just spreads nebulate gas and dust everywhere. And it actually creates a really beautiful scene. If you guys want to see a really cool picture of a nebula, look up the Horsehead Nebula. It's gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens when a star goes supernova. And they believe that Betelgeuse, if you ever want to look up into the sky and find Betelgeuse, it's a red star in the sky that's not a planet. And they believe that that has actually already gone supernova, but we can't tell. And then once that supernova light actually gets to us, that light is going to be so strong that it's going to light up our night sky. It's going to be
Mm-hmm.
insane. So just so you guys kind of get more of a grasp of what we're talking about when we're talking in units of light years, is that we're talking about insane distances. I want you to feel small. You are tiny on the scale of the
Grand
universe.
scheme of things, yeah.
You are
I,
nothing but dust.
I have another fun fact about
Shoot,
so so right now it's 2012, right? And how long ago
it's
did
2020.
or I'm an idiot. 2020. It is 2020. Uh, and how long ago was it that dinosaurs roamed the Earth? 65 million years ago.
65 million years ago. Go ahead.
So if we were to travel at if we could somehow travel out into the universe to where it would take uh light that amount of time to get to us, we could look at Earth through like a telescope with the light that's coming from it, because light is
Mm-hmm.
just bouncing around the universe from everywhere, right?
Yep.
um, we could potentially see dinosaurs on Earth if we
If we
were
had a
if we
strong
were
enough
that
telescope.
if we were that far, if we were far enough away, if we could get there like instantaneously, right, and look back at Earth, we could potentially see the creation of Earth happening, or dinosaurs on Earth, or the first man to walk on two legs, because
Isn't that
that's how
wild?
that's how light works. Yeah, it's insane, right? You have to start thinking about stuff like that when we start thinking about traveling past our own solar system. If we somehow develop the technology to travel the speed of light, or to uh, bend or warp the fabric of space, right, through like a wormhole or whatever, wherever we're trying to go, what we can see from Earth may not necessarily be what's there when we get there. For all we know, the star that's the planet or wherever we're trying to go may have went supernova, right? And there's nothing left, or maybe there's a black hole there now. Who knows? It's crazy to think about. You know, it's it's like I was telling my wife, like one of the things I think or one of the reasons why I find the universe so like appealing and interesting and whatnot is that it's so beautiful yet so chaotic at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
There's all kinds of crazy things, like there's beauty in the chaos of it. Um, it's crazy thing about this stuff. It's really really hard to wrap your mind around all these things, that you have to take into account if you want to go anywhere. You know, but I love it.
I hope this episode gets us on some scientist charts too. Instead of all
Yeah,
these science fiction charts that we're on, maybe we get some science charts and
because
yeah.
nonfiction stuff can be just as fascinating as fiction. Like sometimes reality is stranger than fiction.
Thank you for joining us on this episode. If you'd like to comment on this episode, you can do so on facebook.com/infinite rabbit hole. If you have a story to share with us or would like to be interviewed, you can contact us at infiniterabbithole@gmail.com. Thank you again and have a great day.